Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of December 27, 2021. To quickly reflect on the predictions for the previous week, I predicted that Monday was going to be an up day and then the rest of the week was going to be down. And of course, Monday of last week, we saw a major drop and then the rest of the week was up. So obviously, my predictions in terms of the direction were completely the opposite. That said, I did see a reversal between Monday and the rest of the week, and that was accurate in terms of when the reversal had occurred. For last week, and I guess continuing to the end of pretty much the end of the year, I expect that there was a strong probability of either some accidents involving airplanes or some issues involving some structural problems, such as maybe like a bridge or some large object collapsing, as well as just problems and delays or losses for variety of industries related basically to Uranus, such as maybe telecommunications, airlines, airspace projects, and electric plants and things of that nature. I didn't really see too many news about major structural damage. I did see there were news from Brazil last week about like 2 dams collapsing there. There were also a really major storm in California and Nevada in the United States that was accompanied by problems on the 70-mile stretch of the highway had to be closed due to rock slides, and that definitely fits with Saturn square Uranus transit, where you have something that's heavy and bulky, or I guess metal or rock, falling from a great height. And of course, in the US, certainly around Christmas time, the days preceding Christmas, and even into early this week, on the 27th is when I'm recording this, there were cancellations of thousands of air flights due to concerns about COVID, or I guess due to stuff shortages. And again, this influence of Saturn squaring Uranus with this exact square having occurred on the 25th is actually going to still be quite strong through the end of the year and will continue more or less through as late as October of 2022. So moving on to this week, in terms of the stock market direction, I think that is going to be up on Monday and Tuesday. Then there is a chance of it going down midweek on Wednesday and reversing back to up on Thursday and Friday. Let's see. In terms of the specific sort of influences or important things to note for different times of the week, December 21st through 28th may see focus on various financial topics such as regulations and like rates, debt loans, tariffs, bank assets, and there the concerns may be about either some hidden activities, some fraudulent activities, even manipulations, tax avoidance, and there may be some regulations to basically that will be put together to prevent such occurrences, to kind of increase safety of the assets, to protect the assets, or to reduce the risk of basically fraudulent transactions. Also, if there is some sort of a financial policy in the works or financial deal in the works, again, especially involving financial institutions, that it might be, again, somewhat going somewhat slowly at this time. However, right around March 2nd is when such policy may either be reached, or if it is announced perhaps, say, this week, it may not take effect until, again, around March 2nd. And again, if there is indeed a financial deal or negotiation about, for example, rate or something that affects the value of currency, then at this time, there's a strong probability that such negotiations are not being done, and I guess in a very fair manner, where maybe one party is either blackmailing another party or is trying to manipulate them in some way or is putting some conditions that are very difficult to kind of fulfill. So basically, if there's some negotiations involving basically debt loans, like maybe an entity needs to pay off their loan, for example, again, something is going on that is not very clean, or again, something that involves manipulation or an entity trying to avoid basically its responsibilities. Another influence that again is strong between 21st and 28th has to do with either mining or either services or products that involve either, again, mining, excavation, or underground storage, or say recycling, anything that's like end of life cycle, so to speak, or basically, or occurs underground or occurs in some hidden manner. Again, it could be like spying, hacking, or something to do with basically, again, things that are hidden, either, again, just on purpose, or they're hidden because there's some basically fraudulent activity going on. And so, like I said, that even if there are some deals reached where one party, for example, is agrees to pay maybe some funds to another partner, the conditions of this agreement may again change around the 2nd of March, or the actual like costs or profits may be renegotiated. So maybe if there's a value that's agreed on again this week, that value may change in the early March. Like maybe some party will ask for a higher price at that time, or the profits that are expected when the deal is reached this week may actually turn out to be lower than expected by the time, I guess, something takes effect, which probably will be early March, again, right around March 2nd, seems to be a significant date. Again, globally, the second half of December seems to be an important time where we may expect increase in just regulations or some restrictions that are related to finance in general, again, to try to reduce volatility, improve stability, I guess, reduce inflation, or try to kind of reduce some potential losses. At the same time, this kind of a perhaps excessive kind of focus on controls may undermine kind of a some certain areas, in particular for crypto. I think that mid of December and even into through about the 30th of December, especially for Bitcoin and Ethereum, are not the best times. There already was a drop, and right now things are towards the end of the month are going to be looking slightly better, with I think potentially an actually a short-lived rally from about the 31st through the 3rd of January. But overall, again, mid to late December actually did not look so good for cryptocurrencies, again, due to concerns about some regulations, financial regulations that aim to kind of curb the volatility, and with investors focusing more on things that are stable and kind of tangible, like real estate investments, I don't know, gold, or any other assets that are basically not digital, or something that they can, I guess, feel more sort of secure about. Let's see, for the US, the entire period from about the 6th and continue through the end of the months, especially mid-December, but still will continue to have this, feel this influence. We'll see focus on the communication, transportation industries, as well as retail sales, commerce, any deals with international partners. And there, the concerns again maybe about like overextension, sort of kind of overspending, or perhaps some asset being overhyped or inflated, basically the value not being there, but something seems to be kind of too good to be true. And so again, this initial kind of hype may lead to then sort of regulations to again reduce the volatility and correct that kind of hype. And again, the strongest peak of that influence was right around the 15th, but it will still continue with us through the end of the month. And again, just like for global, I guess, audiences, but also for the US specifically, the financial regulations or financial deals that are reached, say this week, again, either may not take effect until like the 2nd of March, or they may have consequences on some events that will be happening right around the 2nd of March. So either the deal may be reversed, or the value may be adjusted. So perhaps if a policy now takes into consideration maybe some rate or value of some asset being projected at a certain level, it may actually come to, those predictions may not be accurate, and there may be significant adjustments come early March. Also important for the US is the period from about the 23rd through the 27th, so I guess only through the beginning of this week, but basically there may be important news about either new leaders or new projects, yet again related to like communication, transportation, but also with focus on like either military application or sports, but also aerospace projects, IT, telecoms. And I guess this makes me think of, discussion between, not between, but rather about implementation of 5G and its potential effect on airlines. And indeed, whatever is being decided early this week, perhaps with regards to this area, but also any other new projects that are related to, again, IT, aerospace, and again, with focus on either military application or perhaps sports, or something that involves perhaps more like aggressive, risky sort of investments that are, I wouldn't say necessarily a gamble, but something that is, there is like an urgency to develop it faster. Those approaches or those projects or leaders that are put in charge of such projects will see likely the cycle of about 2.5 years, where if say there's a contract granted at this time for, I don't know, some new drone or something like that, or some technology that is used for like computers, electronics, telecoms, etc., that this project will likely have again a life cycle, or the leader may be appointed for about 2.5 years or so. So then globally, 28th through the 29th, may see increased news about commerce, retail sales, communication, transportation, as well as education. And again, areas related to like quote unquote underground. So it's like mining, but also perhaps taxes, tariffs, insurance, mortgages, loans. And again, 28th through 29th may see some concerns about either available cash, available money, basically money available to borrowers, and or concerns about the ability of some large entity, especially a governmental entity or a large corporation, to meet its obligations and pay off its debt, and or about, again, availability of basically financial either help or credit to borrowers. And so again, there may be some concerns or some policies to address these sort of situations, or something that is delayed. For example, if an institution is not able to pay its debt, things may be postponed, delayed until about early March, where then things might actually become even worse. Or if there's a deal, like there may be a promise that maybe some entity is either entering into partnerships, is signing a deal, or is promising that yes, we will pay this debt later on. And again, it looks like this may be kind of, this promise may be taken, or this deal may be reached at this time, but when kind of things become due, or when things actually take effect, which again, to me, it looks like early March, is that the value again may not be there. So the funds may suddenly not be there, or the agreed upon price at this time may then be lowered and adjusted again come early March. Let's see. So Wednesday, again, as I mentioned, I think might be the down day or a reversal. But again, from my belief, down to up. And on Wednesday, there may be increased also concerns about like currencies, crypto in particular, but also credit, rates, and again, some financial instability, debt, and availability of basically credit. And that's what I think might bring the market down also on Wednesday. Then later on, from about the 30th of December through January 7th, and especially January 3rd through 5th, is when we will have Jupiter entering Pisces, but also at the same time it will also square moon nodes. So, and the moon nodes are in, at least per Western astrology, in Gemini and Sagittarius. So, and of course, Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So there will be a lot of focus on the one hand on sort of Piscean kind of things. So it could be like increased in the value of oil, chemicals, gas, pharmaceuticals, but also anything to do with like visual arts, maybe, like companies like Shutterstock or AMC or any of these having to do with movies or, photography and things of that nature. Also beverages, of course, or even anything to do with like worship, some religious kind of undertones to it. So those companies or those areas or those products may either see their value rise, or their prices may go higher. At the same time, again, with Jupiter squaring the nodes, there may be important announcements that are of legal nature, or like some sort of a law or regulation that is, again, not just being a suggestion, but rather is signed into law and potentially agreed upon by international parties, that more likely is, again, going to influence either as regulation or some conditions for transportation, communication companies, as well as education. So it could be something along the lines of regulations of who can travel where, how goods should or should not be shipped, who can go shopping somewhere, or maybe how the goods can be transported, under, again, which conditions. And again, this may have to do with some international agreement. It could be specifically related to the, again, Piscean kind of concerns. Either has to do with oil prices, or potentially the concerns about pandemic, of course, or even the price of some chemical or oil or something like that. So, for example, it could be regulation on how to transport some sort of flammable chemical or flammable, I don't know, liquid, or something that's considered to be dangerous chemical, poisons, or whatever it might be, or how to make sure that, the things are communicated, whether or not one can or cannot communicate about, again, those Piscean topics about maybe some religion, for example. So basically, we may hear about either those regulations being signed into law, international partners agreeing about those regulations, and also important prominent persons being featured that either themselves are, say, lawyers, judges, or like diplomats, basically educated, influential individuals who are highly regarded in society as somebody who basically is a knowledgeable person. And those people either will be in the news because they're going to be lawmakers implementing those laws or signing them into law, or they will be just featured in the news because they will have maybe spoken about something kind of, and that their speech, their communication is going to be suddenly going to be viral, and it will be featured in the news again right at the end of this month into the 7th of January. So maybe like some sort of like a CEO of large transportation company tweets something and suddenly they're in the news, or it could be, again, some events affecting like lawyers, ambassadors, judges, or even some celebrities that are involved perhaps in lawsuits. Let's see. Also, at the same time, again, because moon nodes affect not affect, but rather come up usually in transits when large groups of people are affected. This same transit, Jupiter entering Pisces and making square to the nodes, may also coincide with excessively wet weather, or some like an oil spill, or some maritime transportation accident that, again, involves or affects large numbers of people. So it's like excessively wet weather, again, and there's a dam breach, or flooding, or roads are washed out, or there's like a ferry, and again, Jupiter has to do with excess, so maybe it's overloaded with either goods or people, and again, it capsized or something like that. Or, like I said, it could be like a gas leak or a leak of oil, and again, then things may kind of either explode or pollute, unfortunately, wide area. So there may be some concerns about environmental, basically, pollution, or some poisonous gas escaping, and that, again, may peak right around end of this year, but also into first week of January. Also like a large, maybe drug bust, or some sort of even an accident involving long distance transportation, like a train or even a plane. And or it may also have to do, again, if it's an important, or rather a person who is like maybe an ambassador of some sort, there may be some situation involving some cultural misunderstanding, or some inability to communicate due to, rather, ability to communicate is fine, but more like the communication may not be very clear because of some cultural differences, or differences in sort of beliefs and values. And again, whatever the outcome of that is, it may be affecting large groups of people, so it could be in a level of, again, cities, countries, things of that nature. Let's see. And then for China, also worth noting that the same time period, so right around the 30th of December through 1st of January, there may be some difficulties with international partners, difficulties reaching some agreements, also increased chance of strong earthquakes, and or some announcements about restructuring for like large corporations, removal of old leaders, or some problems where, not necessarily problems, but the need to update either some old regulations or to address some unsafe conditions that are due to some worn out parts or perhaps something crumbling because it's old, outdated. And again, it could be just in terms of just some restructuring plans for a corporation, or it could be literally some building is seen as crumbling and the conditions are unsafe and there's a decision to demolish it or restructure it, or basically some sort of address some sort of structural problem. Let's see. And then, as I mentioned at the very sort of end of this year, but into about the 3rd of January, we may see an important, I guess, not, I would say volatility or increased move in cryptocurrencies, again, particularly Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think at this time it's going to be a short-lived rally. Let's see. Then to take a quick glance at January, the week of January 10th of 2022 seems to be significant both globally and for the US. There may be focus on, again, Neptunian topics such as, again, oil and gas prices, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, also Navy, any sort of a marine transportation, anything to do with ports, and of course water pollution, availability of clean water and things of that nature. And there may be, I think, actually a large market drop potentially due to concerns about gas and oil prices and or concerns about the spread of pandemic. But there also may be some dangerous events involving like fire, but also water. So for example, it could be like underwater volcano exploding, or fire at a marina, fire at an oil rig, arguments over oil, arguments or fire involving a pipeline or an oil tanker and things like that, or maybe even attack on a oil refinery, or just a simple, not simple, but just explosion due to maybe there's just, naturally occurring fire, but basically either actual disagreements about, say, value of oil or gas, or maybe accidents involving those areas, or concerns about pandemic. All of that, I think, may bring market down, and that is for the week of January 10. At the same time, there may be also problems with, again, continuing excessive precipitation, or just even fog, winter storms, etc., and that again may affect long distance transportation. And particularly it could be both globally but also specifically for the US, that week may see excessive rains, floods, snowstorms, and things like that. Slightly longer term for oil, focus on oil and gas prices will continue through about May, and in overall trajectory, I believe is going to be up to peak around April, after which time I think there will be reversal to down just again briefly because of maybe oversaturation, excessive supplies, etc. But even the longer term trajectory for oil and gas prices, I believe, is going to be up through about the late 2024, early 2025. Short term, I think, again, there might be a drop in oil prices right around the week of January 10, where at first the prices may be either suppress or drop on, like I said, concerns about, say, pandemic, or because of some, other concerns. But then there may be an event, such as, again, some sort of, say, attack on an oil refinery, or just arguments over, various oil-related projects, and that may push prices of oil back up to peak right around, let's say, April 4th through the 12th. Then later on for China, also worth noting that February 7th through 18th of 2022 may see some important regulation news about, again, finance, currencies, debt, and there may be, again, some news about a crackdown on crypto at this time. And I think we will see also some important news out of China regarding like earnings or financial regulations or rates or value of currency, also in July and August of 2022. And so those times, I think there may also be effect on the value of cryptocurrencies, again, due to concerns about one in February 7th, 18th, about this increased regulation or even crackdown by China on cryptocurrencies. And then in July, August, I think there may be just even concerns, not just for cryptocurrencies, but for markets in general, because of some increased kind of instability or concerns about instability related to financial area in China. And again, continuing on the topic of China, spring, summer, and again, especially July, August, the same time period for China looks like may see excessive flooding, and there may be associated losses due to that. And again, there could be just concerns about financial area, again, debt, for example, or instability or sudden volatility in the currency value. And in addition to that, also floods, and in addition to that, financial losses associated with floods. And of course, for the US next year, in general, looks to be like an important year due to this ongoing Pluto return, which will continue on somewhat through the, let's say, early 2024, continue to be felt through that, but the sort of the peak influence of it is 2022. So definitely interesting year ahead of us, and I will post a separate predictions on 2022 that it will go into more detail, but to kind of just quickly mention two, I would say, key time periods that jump at me for 2022. One would be, as I mentioned already, early April, right around the 4th of April, of course, plus minus a few days, but the 4th itself looks quite significant. That's when we will have quite precise conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune. So excessive precipitation, potentially even spills of oil and gas, but also increased price of oil and gas, and also potentially increased kind of some sort of, I would say, delusion or dreamy feeling. It's either, of course, it could be a dream, or a nightmare, depending on one's attitude, but basically something that's either too good to be true or something that's not quite real, and people may either be very excited about it because it's like this dream and it seems to be amazing, or it could be that people will obviously be concerned, but they will not be quite sure of what to believe, and this concern may be kind of become out of proportion because, again, there will be lack of actual sort of data behind that. And at the same time, right around the 4th, actually, we will also have Mars conjuncting Saturn, which in and of itself has a signature for major shakeups, like a removal of leaders, for example, or an earthquake or some structural damage to an object. And at the same time, those two planets, Saturn and Mars, will be also squaring North Node, which, again, squaring rather nodes of the moon, which North Node will be conjuncting also Moon on the 4th of April. So multiple really strong transits right around early April, especially on the 4th. And to me, it almost looks like, especially on the global scale, it could be like a major earthquake with tsunami. So there's both this shake-up, some structure basically being shaken up, and at the same time there is this excessive precipitation or flooding, or it could be maybe too much snow accumulated on a roof of a large, I don't know, stadium or whatever the large building might be, and that collapses, or like an avalanche or something like that. Basically, this combination of structural damage and water in whatever the shape, of shape of ice or gas or liquid, etc. And the other important time period, again globally, as August 1st, and again plus minus a few days, but especially on the 1st of August, is when we will have Also, important conjunction of Mars and Uranus and North Node, and that will be in, of course, Taurus and Scorpio, which are associated with finance, but also like taxes, tariffs, of course, and profits, banks, and financial stability. And so definitely some announcements on the global level about either financial policies or increased volatility in cryptocurrencies and currencies in general, or some fluctuations in the value for institutions, the financial institutions. So maybe some banks may even, I would say, potentially suddenly go under, or there's really a major drop or increase, and I'm thinking more of a drop in the value of some currency, but also there could be some other digital assets that will be hyped up again, going kind of through the roof. But again, a lot of instability and a lot of sudden developments there. At the same time, we will also, though those Mars and Uranus, there will also be within about 4 degrees squaring Saturn, as this ongoing kind of Saturn Uranus square will continue through about October of 2022. So basically, definitely some sort of financial shakeups, either again concerns about stability of financial institutions, stability concerns about financial policies, concerns about rates, concerns about basically finance, and definitely to me it looks like more of a downtrend at that time for cryptocurrencies, again just to concerns about stability, but also some assets of course can be hyped up and go through the roof. But again, this is just a very volatile time, so definitely invest at your own risk. And also, I guess at the same time, there may be increased probability of like accidents, especially related to like airplanes or sudden fires, tornadoes, anything that may disrupt power supplies and telecommunications, because again of this sudden jolting, kind of like currency going through, not by current going through, and or lack of power suddenly, or basically communication being cut off, and basically some definitely unstable time. And at the same time, this conjunction between North Node, Mars and Uranus is going to be making a opposition to China's Venus, which is again why I was also predicting July and August being important for China, specifically regarding events or projects or leaders or announcements related to finance. And definitely with these difficult transits, I would expect there to be some concerns about stability, about some financial institutions in China, or there being some sudden surprising announcements that are related to financial policies, rates, and again concerns about earnings. But again, not everything may be bad, but definitely things that are of surprising nature and developing faster than expected. So if there's some financial policy that is expected to come out of China maybe later in the year, it will actually come sooner. And again, there might be an overreaction to it when it does come out. And as I mentioned, again, August, if somebody's planning to travel somewhere, just keep in mind again this specific transit of this Mars conjunct Uranus conjunct nodes, North Node rather, again, is something that may affect large groups of people. So it could be really widespread, again, tornadoes or storms, widespread power outages. Of course, in the US is the time where there's a hurricane season, I believe. So if indeed there is a potential for a really major hurricane, that would be definitely the time. So definitely something to keep in mind when planning a vacation. So like I said, I will post predictions for 2022 in more detail separately, but this was just like a little preview just to give you some ideas of what's to come. In the meantime, I'm hoping you're having a fantastic week, and Happy New Year to everyone, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.